What's up, pod pals? It's your buddy Adam, and we are doing a podcast audit session with another one of my pod pals. We've got Matt Franklin from the Rogue Retirement Lounge podcast. And if you are somebody that's a podcaster, you're looking for podcasting tips on how to grow a podcast, how to increase your podcast audience engagement, or you're looking for tips on how to monetize your podcast, you're in the right spot. We're doing a podcast audit. Matt, how's it going today, man?
Couldn't be better. Couldn't be better, Adam. Glad to be here.
Well, I love doing these. I want to start off with a little bit of a recap. I had you fill out a bunch of information for me. I just want to get everybody on the same page so that the audience knows what I know, and then we can dig in together. Sound good?
Excellent.
All right, cool. So name of the show is the Rogue Retirement Lounge. We'll talk, topic and what your ideal audience looks like here in a second. Areas for improvement that you were gunning for is you're thinking about the possibility of rebranding with a new name, which again, we'll definitely talk about that. At this point, we don't have any lead magnets or programs, products, or services. You're kind of getting your traction going before we dive into that. And you're doing semi-regular posts on LinkedIn, but that's about it as far as communication with the audience. So we've got a few different things I've got some different ideas to help you out there. And then your largest obstacle that you entered in was, at this point, I feel like a podcast talking about finance and retirement that has less than 50 episodes doesn't have a lot of credibility with the amount of other shows out there in the space. So you're kind of just trying to build up your catalog and build credibility. So does that all still sound accurate and good?
That still does. Yep.
Okay. So first, let's go first things first. Show title. Who are you trying to serve? Like, who is the ideal avatar listener that when you do decide to monetize could become an ideal avatar client as well?
Well, my ideal listener would be somebody who is self-employed, definitely self-employed people. If you got a 401k and you've got your employer is helping you do your retirement, you're not for me. I want to talk to entrepreneurs, and particularly solopreneurs who might be like 40 or older, who want to plan their retirement and get their retirement ducks in a row, because a lot of us entrepreneurs are really bad about doing that.
Okay. So you hit some key words that I like. Like when it comes to a podcast name, and I'm like really dialed in with this right now because I've been recording videos for my soon to becoming course, the Podcast Launch Blueprint. But I do a whole thing on naming and SEO because we've got 3 zones for search engine optimization when it comes to our podcast that we don't want to mess up. The biggest one is the show title. That it has the most weight in SEO. The second one is the description of the show. The third is any podcast episode title. All right. So we want keywords in those 3 areas that are like fishing lures for our ideal listener. So the word retirement, I feel like that's good. That's definitely, that's what you do. So that's right. That's your audience. Now the Rogue Retirement Lounge, I like Retirement Lounge. The Rogue, like you said, Rogue may be a little vague. It may be like, I get where you're going with solopreneur, but I would call it the Solopreneur Retirement Lounge or the Self-Employed Retirement Lounge. Like I would use, because solopreneur and self-employed are very search engine friendly. Those are words that people will put into the Apple Podcasts or Spotify when they're looking for your type of a show.
Right.
So that's what we want. Like, and it's boring and it's vanilla, but like you want it to be a just frying pan upside the head, no brainer. This is exactly what this is. It's not like my first, and all this being said, every show that I've launched, I have renamed and rebranded at some point because I'm like, that was a terrible name. So, and it's not hard to do at all. Like it's very simple to do in your podcast host. You just flip the name, you switch your image, you're good. We want to inform our audience, but I would give serious thought to having self-employed or solopreneur in the title and take out, even if you call it the Rogue Solopreneur Retirement Lounge, or we could just do this. The Rogue Retirement Lounge for solopreneurs, for self-employed. Like we can do that as well on the back end. So it's still the same title. It's just like adding on to it. And that way we get SEO. And that may be it's your show. It kind of depends on what you can live with and what you're happy with. But I would look at taking out rogue and putting in self-employed or solopreneur, or adding those words to the back edge. And I think that'll be an easy SEO fix right there. So how does that hit you initially?
It hits me well, because when I started this, I wanted a cute title. I wasn't thinking SEO. I was thinking, hey, and
we get artistic,
Yeah, exactly. And this was literally because I was alienating my friends when we would be at happy hour and I'd be like busting their chops about their retirement savings. I wanted this to be my little happy hour. And that's why I call it the lounge, Yep. And then rogue was because I talk about alternative investing stuff, and it turned into a quagmire of crap. Also, when you say rogue retirement lounge, if I'm guesting on someone else's podcast, unless you really hear rogue, it sounds like road. So there's the phonetic problem there. And then I was on one guy's podcast who was dyslexic, and he called it the Rouge Retirement Lounge. So bless his heart. So there's definitely some problems there. And I feel like something, A, more SEO optimized, like you're saying, but B, something that's just more literal and to the point, and maybe boring, but it gets the point across.
Yeah. And you're mentioning a lot of just hot button words that I like, that I'm like, ooh, SEO. And you can pop those in the description too. So whether you go with solopreneur or self-employed, eat one of those, then the other one goes in your description, where you got to think about what are people putting in that search engine. So for me, you'll notice I talk about tips for podcasters or podcasting tips, because that's the most SEO'd thing that people find my show with. Even these go onto my YouTube page. And I learned in a recent interview that YouTube takes the first few minutes and they take the actual verbiage for SEO. So that's why I said podcasting tips like 4 times in my intro today.
Okay.
Podcasting tips, podcasting tips, SEO. So every time I say it, more SEO on YouTube. But so we got to think in that description, I would say like retirement advice for, and then just list keywords.
Right.
If you were looking for retirement advice on the topics, or if you are a blah, 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 looking for retirement advice, retirement tips, I would just fill it with all those sorts of words. And then when you do your episodes, like we want retirement tips, retirement advice, solopreneur, financial planning, like those keywords in the title as often as possible. So I put podcast monetization in a lot of my episodes, podcast growth in a lot of episodes. And it doesn't have to be in every episode, but if you have an opportunity to stick it in there, do it. Like and your audience is going to be like, so tired of podcast growth episodes. Because it's like, that's what they want, right?
Right.
And you listen to the show. So if you get sick of podcast growth episodes, you just let me know and I'll stop doing it.
I doubt I will.
So yeah, I would just kind of kick some ideas around. If you have some listeners, or if you got like a Facebook group, or, you can lean on me, of course, but just toss a few ideas out there and see what people are like. Yeah, that looks good. Or maybe ask, if you ever get email or DMs from listeners, ask them how they found your show. And if they are like, oh, Apple Podcasts, I'm like, what do you think you put in the search to find my show? Or what words were you searching when you are looking for a show like mine? And just start making notes, and like, I got to add that to at least my show description. You can just pack words in there, and it's got to make sense. But like, now one thing you can't do, which a lot of people really grew their show back in the day, when
guest name stuffing.
Yes,
I've seen that, and it looks, and you can see there are still people. I won't mention the one guy's name who is a podcast guest guru, but his whole description is like Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, blah, blah, blah. And none of those guys have ever been on his podcast. And it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah. That used to work, and now it'll get your podcast taken down. So
good. Okay.
Don't do that, pod pals out there listening in. Okay, so you feel pretty good about that? I gave something.
Yeah. Can I ask a couple quick questions?
Of course.
Okay, so this SEO zones thing, I think I clearly have become a little bit more SEO focused as I go on. I'm putting the word retirement, even if I'm not talking about retirement, in my or specifically, but I am putting the word into all my titles. My description, if I recall, is somewhat SEO optimized, but it's more kind of a lighthearted, look at the thing. So I need to definitely put more focus on that. But show notes, where do show notes play, and how much weight do they have in your SEO matrix?
From what I've talked to Rob from Libsyn. That's where I host, and he's like my go-to resource for all this. And he's the one that told me like ratings and reviews mean nothing. Like it doesn't mean algorithm-wise nothing. That I believe that show notes have some value, but the top three by far are the show name, the show description, the episode title.
Gotcha.
And because podcast players right now, they just aren't doing a whole lot. Like you can't search, like once your episode is live on my show, you can't search and find your episode by searching your name and my show name. You know what I'm saying? Unless it's on my website. But it's not going to pull up Apple, like within Apple Podcasts. You can't search, Matt Franklin Podcasting Business School. It won't. It'll just pull up my show. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So they aren't that dialed in, but I think they'll get there eventually. So
one would think.
Yeah, having good show notes with some keywords in it. Now, with social media, like that's where I use my show notes for my social media. So I'll take my show notes and post them on my Instagram as the description of that post. So, having good keywords and searchable things that you can hashtag and stuff like that, it's not going to hurt at all. So, but I don't think you need to like, at this point, really, really stress out about it. I would go show name, show description, show titles, really nail those, and we should be set up pretty good.
Okay. Awesome. Sounds good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about my specialties: growth, engagement, and monetization. Now, I get that you are in the mode of audience growth, audience building. You said you kind of want to get your first 50 episodes, you get your first year under your belt. And I think that's a great game plan. A lot of podcasters suffer from what I call premature monetization. And, it happens to the best of us. We put that big course out there, we spend a lot of money on it, and then we have 5 people listening. So it doesn't really matter. And then we get upset about it.
Right.
So as far as audience growth, I've got, obviously something. Are you guesting on other people's podcasts right now? Have you done much of that yet?
I have been, yes, a little bit. Yep.
Excellent. Now let's set a couple of benchmark goals for the OPP zone, the other people's podcasts. The first benchmark I would set for people that are just kind of getting their feet wet is 1 per month. Get on somebody else's show once a month, 12 per year. And that's a good initial benchmark of like, all right, my brand and my show is getting out there on someone else's. I'm sharing their brand 12 times a year. That's a pretty good start. Then the next level is we try to do over 50 per year. So we're looking at more like once a week. And then, from there we can get crazy with it. Now we want on brand or tangential brand relationships. Like you don't need to come on like my weight loss show and talk about financial advice. It's got to be. The good news is lots of financial advice and money specific podcasts out there that we can really, connect with. So I would set those as benchmark goals. Another thing to look at is promo intro swaps. You've got a good hearty podcast voice. So do you know what I'm talking about when I say a promo intro swap?
Yep.
Okay. So for those of you listening or watching, it's basically if Matt and I are like, yeah, let's do a promo intro swap together, he would record a quick intro to my show, introducing my podcast episode, not his episode of my show. It's a different one. So we get good exposure. And I would do the same for him. And I've got a little template that I give people. I'm like, here's what I need you to say. Here's what I'm going to say for you. It's a little advertisement for your show. These things are money. Like they really work well. And, if you are a guest on someone else's show, or if you have someone that's a guest on your show that has a podcast, I would always hit them up and be like, hey, let's also record while we're here real quick. Let's record a promo intro swap together. You do yours, I'll do mine. Here's the script. It's in the, you put it in the chat or whatever. And then you just knock it out. It takes 30 seconds each one. And then you've got another ad on their show. They've got an ad on your show.
Right.
And it sounds cool for the intro of the show. It's pretty cool. So And we should definitely do that. We can definitely do that together.
Cool.
So that's something that I would definitely look at as well. Now, social media. Do we just hate social media? Is that a lot of people just hate social media? Is that the case we're dealing with here?
Well, I hate it, but I also it just I'm not a good self promoter, narcissist guy out there, taking pictures of my lunch and standing at the edge of a cliff or whatever people do these days. So yeah, I have an Instagram account, and after having not posted anything for I think about 6 years, I made my first post a couple weeks ago. So yeah, and I am on LinkedIn. I do actually have like 7,000 or so connections on LinkedIn, but it's amazing. That's like about probably worth a nickel, because I'll still post links to a new episode and get no reactions. So it's not like it's a huge resource for me.
So something you could think about, because I'm all about efficiency, is the platform that we're using right now. It's called StreamYard. Have you ever used StreamYard or been on a StreamYard account before?
I've been on guest on episodes with StreamYard. Yeah. So
the nice thing about this is right now we're live on Facebook, my Facebook group, my Facebook page, and YouTube. You can, I think I've got the $25 per month plan. I can do 3 zones. Okay. But you can also do LinkedIn. Once you have LinkedIn live access, which you apply for, and it sounds like you've got a good following on LinkedIn, and you could probably leverage that. And this is up and it's live and it looks good. Like you can set up your, like all of this banner stuff and the ticker and all that's done inside of StreamYard. It's super easy. I just click a few buttons and then it's there. It's great content. It's live. If people start commenting, you can answer comments, pull them up on the screen, and it's very, very easy.
Wow.
And it's instant YouTube content, instant Facebook content, instant LinkedIn content. And like, it's that simple. And your episodes are up there. They promote themselves and you've got social media content. So that's something to consider. That's something to consider. And it looks good. Like my whole main threshold that I wouldn't cross is I don't want to edit video. I will not do that. That's why I didn't have a YouTube page. I'm like, I'm not going to edit video. I don't have time for that. I do not want to pay somebody to do that. Right. I'm not going to do it. This is just up and I don't have to edit anything. It just looks good. It shows up good. All good to go. So that's something to think about as far as social media goes. Like I've had a lot of success with live follow-up interviews. You could do them on something like this. You could do them on Instagram, but I would look at something more like this with StreamYard before we start going like IG lives and stuff like that. I think this will be more efficient and more your jam. So something to think about there. Now, audience engagement wise, so I know you don't have a lead magnet.
I do not.
Okay. So like I know you're signed up for one of my PodPal Zoom parties coming up. I think even tonight, maybe.
Tonight, yes.
Okay.
I'm psyched.
Man, we're hanging out all day. We're hanging out all day.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's something that you can do. I call that a community engagement lead magnet. You could do that for your brand, for your audience once a month. And the simple formula is we create an email gateway. Like you gave me your email address when you signed up for that.
Right.
Now we're building a list. All right. But it's not like the 5 tips to retire before age 60 or something. Like there's a lot of that. What you're doing is you're inviting them to interact, and we're taking them off the sidelines into the game, eyeball to eyeball. And we get to hang out and do like live interaction and see each other. So it's basically what I would start off with once a month. You do an email gatekeeper. You got to get their email address. Then I use Calendly, and just like you've seen the entire process. Just copy what you saw there. You book on the calendar. You get the reminder emails. There's the Zoom link. Boom. We'll show up tonight. We'll do a 45-minute session. And so these are people that are ideal superfan listeners. You're going to level up like their experience with your show. They're like, I've talked to this guy. Like I've talked to him. Like I've interacted, and it makes, when they subscribe to your show and they listen to your show, it makes the experience a whole different thing because you're able to add value. So once you do that, like what you'll see tonight is I will teach for about 10 to 15 minutes. It's like the first third. Okay. Then the middle part is like a round robin. Everybody gets to talk. So that's the thing. You have to come up with the idea that will get anybody that attends the opportunity to say something. So otherwise, it's just like a Facebook Live. Like, why?
Right. Right.
I can just type in comments or something or hit the heart button. So we've got them on Zoom. We want interaction. So what we'll do tonight is podcast or speed dating. Everybody gets to say what their show title is, what their show's about, who they're looking for guests, who they're great guests for. And then, of course, I record it and I put it out as an episode of the show. So it's promotion for everybody. Then at the end, we do open Q&A. So what you could do is you teach on a topic, and then you have everybody involved that wants to. They can go and do like their financial win of the month or financial tip of the month. But it's got to be 60 seconds or less. You cannot let these people go on a big filibuster about like their life story. I'm like, back in 3rd grade, I got my first piggy bank. That can't happen. I mean, this is just, of course, just kind of brainstorming, but you teach, and then you get everybody interacting, open Q&A at the end. And that's like the perfect formula. 45 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, once a month, start out. And then once you start filling them up, then you can do like I do. I do them twice a month. I do them every other week. And when I do that, I alternate time zones. That way people, like I had somebody today from Australia that was like, I can't make that. That's in the middle of the night. But they can do, when I do the alternating time zone, I do 12 Eastern and 8 p.m. Eastern every other week. That way it's an 8-hour gap and we can cover Australia, England, California, New York, the whole gamut. So
that makes sense.
So that's the formula, man. But then you've got an email list that you're building. So that's good. And you're building them with like super fans. These are people that want to interact with you. And that's gold star. So we can level up your audience engagement. You're going to see a download spike. These are the people that will go out and tell everybody else about your show. That's going to differentiate you from all the other financial advice shows out there. You are like actively engaging with your tribe, not sitting up on your financial advice throne, just dispensing knowledge from the podcast. You're like, hey, and you sponsor your show with whatever you call, like, this is, you got the lounge, like this is the monthly, this is the actual lounge. Like the show is the lounge, but like, this is where you're actually getting to interact, kick back, and it's the happy hour. Maybe you call it that. The solopreneur, retirement happy hour or whatever. And I think that your audience will really eat it up because I'm a solopreneur and I had to figure out all my retirement stuff on my own. And there's no like this is like, and you put out some stuff on social media calling all solopreneurs. Once a month, I get everybody together and you can fire away with your retirement-based questions. Will you ever be able to retire? Let's find out. Are you gonna have to work till you're 90? Or you have to work? Can you retire when you're 40? When do you reach financial independence? What does financial independence even mean? Like that's the type of stuff you put out there on social. And you just drive people to this every month. It's a call to action, and you're on your show saying that, hey, our monthly meetup is coming up. Come and hang out in the retirement lounge meetup. Whatever you call it. You want a good fun title. And that's where you bring the creativity and that fun vibe that you want to bring with your show. And you just let them know, hey, I'm going to teach on this topic. And I would make that, vary throughout each time you do this. Sure. Everybody gets to say their tip of the month or their win of the month, or, you could even do question of the month, maybe, but then we got to make sure everybody gets to say something. Like I like the speed round and then Q&A, because that means a lot to people that you're letting them speak up on your brand, on your channel. Does that make sense?
I like it. Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
Okay. So, and then when you're ready to monetize, this makes it way easier because you're adding value and you're no longer this person in their earbuds. You've interacted, and it's a different level and they know that you're accessible. So when you launch your course, you launch your coaching program or your consultation service or whatever, like that's it, you're so much closer to getting a yes than if you're just in their earbuds every week or whatever they listen in.
Right. Yeah.
Like it makes a huge, huge difference. So I think that's where I would put some effort, and it's going to be fun. It's once a month. It's not hard, and it's content you record it, put it out as an episode. It shows you in coach mode again when you're ready to sell something. And I think you definitely should like I don't know what you thought about monetization wise, but I'm a big fan for people like you. Like I've coached a lot of people in the financial space, the real estate space. Hybrid courses do really well where it's a video based course, but there are checkpoints with coaching sessions. So you know what they need to know before they do checkpoint 1 and they get on a Zoom chat with you. And then you go, okay, do video 5 through 8, and then it's checkpoint 2, videos 9 through 15, checkpoint 3. So it's live coaching plus the course so that you can kind of double check and verify that they're doing everything correctly. So if you're like, we're going to set up your retirement accounts and, we're going to talk about, let's eliminate, phase 1, eliminate debt. Phase 2, start, socking away for a Roth IRA, phase 3, let's look at crypto or whatever, whatever it is, like you're looking at all these different things, investing in real estate, you have all these different modules, but like retirement is so confusing and so big. People will definitely appreciate one-on-one time, and we can charge for that. Like that's something that will set you apart, that everybody else is like automated course, sign up, email, funnel. And you're a human funnel at this point. You're providing value on your show, inviting them to interact on your monthly meetup. Then when you're ready to do coaching and course stuff, you invite them in to try that out or do a free consultation or whatever. If it makes sense, they do it. And you're in the trenches with them. You're interacting. No BS email funnel stuff, no impersonal bot automated stuff. And some people are really good at that. I'm not.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not either. Not. Clearly,
it is not. It's not what I'm about. So let's see here.
I like it.
We got a comment. I got to show off here. My friend Tyler says, "Love what you're doing, Adam." Thank you, Tyler. Thank you very much. Tyler and I played basketball in high school. That you never know who's going to pop up on a live stream.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's what we got. So shout out to Tyler. All right. So we covered your rebranding. I feel good about that. We got some other people's podcast situation goals, social media goals, engagement, and monetization. Like that, I feel like. How do you feel about the hybrid course thing? I mean, do you feel like is that intimidating?
Well, it's intimidating, but I think it makes so much sense because there are a million like little courses that are, and I think courses were like a huge opportunity 10 years ago when Udemy came out, or maybe 5 years ago, and you had your Udemy and your Teachable and your Fedora, and you had all these new platforms, and it was like a big thing, like, oh, hey, I can sell a class for $1,000, and all this, and Dean Graziosi was selling you on how to do it and all these gurus. But now I think it really makes sense. And I had never even thought about the idea of a hybrid class, but I think it makes perfect sense because I currently am taking a class from Anthony Pompliano in cryptocurrencies, and there's a whole lot of interaction. There's tons of interaction, and I think you got to have that because otherwise, people don't take the classes. Yeah, you could look at the fall off rates from people who buy courses. This would actually keep people going for one thing, and it would make for a lot more value. So I think that gives me a ton of food to chew on there.
Good. And if you don't want to do one-on-one, like if you do one-on-one, maybe that's an option. You get 5 sessions or whatever. Let's just say 5 sessions. They can be one-on-one for this price, or you can do small group coaching for less price. Like they do a group of 10. So it's the VIP upgrade with one-on-one coaching instead of the small group. And people will pay for that. Like it'll blow your mind, and they will pay handsomely, especially because we're saving them money and making them money. Right. You're in that space. It's like, this is a no-brainer. It was unfortunate when I was in the weight loss space. Like you can't charge as much for helping people save their own lives by getting healthy. But if you can show them how to make a few bucks, you can up the price a bunch. So you're in a good spot.
That's kind of a sad commentary.
Yeah, it is, but it is what it is.
Right.
The truth. Mm-hmm. All right, Matt, let's make sure that we shout out your show. Maybe rebranded by the time this goes live on the podcast. I'll make sure I put accurate information in the show notes for you. But where can people go to get connected to you and check out your show?
Well, anywhere you find your preferred podcast platform, it's the Rogue ROGUE, Retirement Lounge. And it's all about retirement planning for entrepreneurs.
Boom. There you go, Pod Pals. Matt, appreciate you coming on, and I will be in touch with all the notes that I've got. You have so many good ideas.
Awesome.
So yeah, I appreciate you supporting the show. I know you said you listened to the show, so I appreciate that.
I'm a huge fan. This is, again, I'm a fanboy. I love this. I got a whole page full of notes. Adam, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time on this. This is great. All
right, cool. All right, Pod Pals, if you want to do a podcast audit just like my Pod Pal Matt here, head over to the website www.podcastingbusiness.school.